currently raining outside right now. I have my chai latte in hand. It is like a writer's paradise. I'm gonna have a very good day today. I hope you do too. Hi, and welcome to CP's Notebook, where I let you in on my process on my current works in progress. I am CP, and today we will be talking about a old work in progress of mine. I started it a while ago, and it just never could connect for me. So, one of my favorite things to do is let things marinate, and it has been marinating for maybe a year or so. But yesterday I got some new inspiration for it, and I started really getting down to the nitty gritty of things, and I pulled a lot of inspiration from other works that I had been working on in the past that never really panned out. And now it sort of turned into something that really interests me, and I want to flesh it out more. I want to get to the good meat and potatoes of this story. I want to get to what actually makes this story a story, what makes it good. That led me to this video. So I'm going to call this video Pulling the Ends Together. Pulling everything together, making it cohesive. And the reason why I say that is because I am a visual person, right? I'm a traditionally visual artist, as I went to school for studio arts. So that's how I see things, right? When I see things, I see movies, I see visions, I see colors, right? And that's why I say I have to pull this together, make it all make sense, make it meld together. And one of the biggest steps of that I sort of outlined for this video is to dig deeper, right? I let this story really marinate for a very long time, so much so that it's basically a completely different story now. It does have some of the same bones and some of the same skeletal elements, but for this most part, it's a completely different story. Within that being a new story with new characters and new tropes, I really had to start asking some big questions to get to the nitty gritty of what is this story actually about? What is it really doing for me? What is it supposed to do? And what is the overall theme that I want people to take from it? I start with things that I've already worked on. I start with the Pinterest board that I made however many years ago. The little notes that I wrote in my notebook, whatever little excerpts I wrote on the side when I was like, ooh, this could happen. I like to take notes on my notes, which I know is sort of egregious and seems a little pretentious, but I think it's necessary for me because as someone who overthinks, it's really easy to get in your head about details and be like, well, is it that or is it that? And does that make sense still? And do I still want that? And trying to work out everything all at once. So when I take notes on my notes, it leaves me that space to make sense of the elements of the story that were already present, but also the things that I want to bring into it, things I want to take out, and things I want to elaborate on, things that need to make a little bit more sense for me. So for this book in particular, we'll call it Project Spirit. So for Project Spirit, I really had to go through each character and figure out okay, who is this person? What do they have? Especially because it's a more fantasy based novel, I really wanted to get to what are their abilities, what are their gifts, what are their powers, if you want to say that, early on, so I can build off of that as a skeletal of this story, right? Because their powers and abilities aren't the complete story right there. It isn't about them getting their powers. It isn't about why do they have these powers. They already have these powers that are established. They already learned how to control them, and they already work with them. Maybe there's an element of learning how to better work with them, learning more ways to work with them. But as it stands right now in the book, these powers and abilities or gifts are already established within these characters. So I really wanted that to work as a skeleton and also work as a part of their background, as well as what their parents or ancestors, relatives may have had as their gifts or abilities as well, which I may talk about in another video, but for now we're just going to focus on me digging deeper. One of the bigger questions that I asked to gain the theme, to really figure out what exactly is it supposed to be saying, is what happens when you devote yourself to everything around you but you? And that's a big theme of this story, because the story is about grief in a way. It's about family. It's about sisterhood, most importantly. And it is about romantic relationships. It's about love, period. And I think a big piece of love that a lot of us, I would say, get wrong, but who am I? I'm not really the judge or jury on the topic of love, but I think one thing that we do a lot with even just writing it, I think we pedestalize compromise and sacrifice. And though I do not believe that a true love means that nothing ever happens, that there's never a conflict ever, that there's never anything that you guys have to negotiate on, I do feel like as a element of true love across the board, through writing, through film, through TV, through music, through just living day-to-day life, it's so pedestalized that you're gonna have to make a compromise, you're gonna have to make a sacrifice, there's something you're gonna have to lose in order to find true love. And though we do know, if you know, you want your scholar, like I do, like I be, if you know, you know, but they say that the price of love is grief, the price of love is loss, because we don't own anything on this world. We don't own anything. And I don't want to get too existential, but basically what I'm trying to say is the theme of this is what happens when you devote yourself to other things except for yourself, and you're left with nothing. But you're the only thing that you will ever own. You're the only thing that you will ever really have and possess in this world. You're the only thing that you can ever really know for sure will be there. And there are many characters in this book, and they all are taking this journey around this question in a very different way. And within that, like I said, love, sisterhood, also romantic love plays a very big part in this book. And that led me to, within digging deeper, going as far as figuring out what these relationships look like. On the theme of figuring out romantic relationships within your book, a video that I watched that really helped me put it in perspective was Shaylin Wright's How to Write Romance. Because I am primarily a romance writer, but as this book that I'm currently working on is more fantasy based, it became like weird for me to figure out like how to put them in context of the story, how to make it make sense. They really put in context that there has to be a reason that they're together. It can't just be the fact that the book needs them to be together for this to make sense, right? And it needs to have real story. It needs to have real meat. And with that sent me down sort of a rabbit hole of putting each of these character profiles together and then putting together their story. And as I said, I am a visual person, so I do love to have visual aid in my inspiration pictures at hand. Like, I need to have them on the page with the writing sometimes so that I can understand who these people are, like what I'm looking at. It makes it easier for me to create the story in my head through a movie, through a scene, a vision that I have when I see them and I'm able to figure out a story for them. Doing these character profiles and relationship profiles, it really made me begin to fall in love with the characters, because I do like to give them a nice little quote of something, like a quote that encapsulates how they move with each other, how they act with each other in a song or two or three or 10. And also I like to figure out, and this is one of the tips that Shaylin Wright's put in her video, as far as how do they complement each other, how do they balance each other out, or how do they challenge each other. And that really posed a good prompt for the way that I outlined the relationships and the dynamics that were gonna come up in this book. And also through the romantic outlining, it made me be able to look at the characters in a way of evolution quicker, because I am someone who writes more in a pantser sort of way, where I do like to have an outline, but if something comes to me, I'm gonna just write it. I'm not gonna sit and wait and write down the notes on it. Most times, if it's that good and it's a full enough idea, I will just write it. That leads me to only getting to the evolution of the characters as I go. And this is one of the first times where I was able to see the evolution of a character before I actually started really writing for them. And that's something that I'm going to keep in my back pocket, because it's really nice to be able to see where this character will go. And I think that even makes for better storytelling in the beginning, because you're able to put those little details in and make it a more fulfilling journey for the reader to uncover these little things about this character as they go, and they're seeing their evolution on the page instead of, you know, these hard, fast moments that have to be the turning point. It makes space for a more gradual and I think a more realistic way of writing a character as well. One of the things that I'm working on now, which is one of the last points that I'll make on this topic of digging deeper to further flesh out and pull together themes and overviews of a writing project, book, novel, especially the one that I'm working on right now, is still on the topic of those bigger questions, those broad range questions to really get the detail, get to the nitty gritty of any given project. And since I did mention that this book is fantasy based because there are powers, abilities, some level of occult, but it's more so elemental abilities and gifts, but also there's an element of immortality and invincibility, and immortality does play a sort of big role in the book as well. And I think that plays into one of the questions that the main character asks herself, and then in turn the book asks the characters and the reader as well, is what does it mean to be a part of a family? What does it mean to be yourself? What does it mean to hold authenticity above all else? What does it mean to follow, chase, or go after the things that you desire out of this life, whether that's something that someone else wants for you or not? And within the theme of immortality, even, a big question that came up for me, which is more trivial than it is existential or emotional, but it is a big question and one that needs to be answered nonetheless, is what is the difference between invincibility and immortality? And actually, I wanted to search that up, Google it really quick. Some answers are coming up on Quora, so I will see which ones stick out. Someone said, if you are invincible, then nothing from outside your body can harm you. You can still grow old and die. If you are immortal, then nothing will ever harm you from within your body and you can live forever. But if you get trapped in a burning building, you're toast. There's also the concept of serial immortality, in which you have backup files of yourself, and if something kills you, you can be brought back to life. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. that ain't gonna happen. We ain't gonna have none of that. Ain't no Lazarus up in here. Someone else says, they categorize aging and immortality in this way. Ageless, false immortality. The only difference between you and the average person is lifespan. You do not age. Invincibility. You cannot be killed by physical means. You still age like normal. Pseudo-immortality. You have regenerative abilities so powerful that you can regenerate from a single cell. As a result, you do not appear to age, and very few things can kill you. However, if you are utterly destroyed without even a cell remaining, then you are dead permanently. Even regeneration has its limits. You are at extreme risk for cancer because genetic instabilities, mutation can occur during regeneration. That's interesting. True immortality. Nothing can kill you. You are both ageless and invincible. You are immune to all diseases. Your body is indestructible, and overall you have no weakness. Your body is a fixed existence and it is not subject to the laws of nature. Basically, you are a god, even if you have no powers. You would just be a powerless god. I kind of like that one. And this question, like I said, immortality plays a big part in this book, especially because the project that came before it, its predecessor, the themes of it were more so about what does it mean to be immortal and what level of muddying does that do to your soul, if any. I'm happy that I'm even recording this because that is a theme that I really want to come back up, especially because there are only so many people in this given world that I'm building that are immortal and know how to be or how to gain that status in their life. And it's a big question as to what does that do to your morals? What does that do to your conscience? And what does that do to your spirit? Right? And I think a theme that I had in the first iteration of this book was that whatever was in your spirit would be amplified once you took a certain elixir in order to be immortal. And so if you were a bad person, if you just had a nasty spirit, you would become an evil person. If you were a good person, you would become a great person, so on and so forth. And like I said, I think those are things that I want to bring back. So I have my notes. I have some things to think on. I thank you for listening and letting me rant off and figure out some very important themes and overviews for this current work in progress that I'm working on. I'm going to keep working on it. I hope you're writing something too. And until next time, bye-bye. Ew. Ooh, just knock that out. You see what I do? Ooh. I like that. I likes that. It's Jupiter Day, baby. It's feeling real like that.